Welcome to this explainer. When we think about aging, we usually just picture a process of simple wear and tear, right? We think of creaky joints, a slower metabolism, just the inevitable passage of time. But what if I told you that how you age is actually dictated by a hidden, bustling ecosystem living right inside of you? Today, we're exploring the gut health crisis that hits after age 60 and uncovering exactly why your microbiome might be the true driver of how your body and your mind actually age. Let's jump right into it. 38 trillion. Just let that staggeringly massive number sink in for a second. Inside your digestive tract right now, you are hosting an ecosystem of approximately 38 trillion microorganisms. We're talking bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea, the whole shebang. Together, they weigh up to 2 kilograms and contain 100 times more genetic information than your own human genome. So this isn't just some passive collection of hitchhikers. It's a highly active biological system that communicates with pretty much every organ in your body. But as we cross that 60-year mark, this dynamic system goes through a pretty dramatic deterioration.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, we'll cover the microbiome crisis after 60. Then look at your gut's second brain, followed by leaky gut and systemic inflammation, and immune and metabolic aging. Finally, we'll wrap up with 7 proven restoration strategies. We're moving from understanding the biological shifts straight into an empowering evidence-based playbook for restoration.
All right, let's start with part 1, the microbiome crisis after 60. A youthful gut is incredibly diverse and highly resilient, but once you cross into your 60s, a whole cascade of compounding factors basically conspires against it, and that vital diversity just plummets. First, we see reduced gastric acid, which completely changes the chemical environment of your upper digestion. Then there's slowed gut motility. Things are moving slower, which allows certain bacterial populations to overgrow. Plus, your body produces less immunoglobulin A, meaning you lose some of that crucial immune oversight that keeps your gut balanced. Now, combine all that biology with modern lifestyle factors. Think about the dramatic increase in antibiotics that can just wipe out hundreds of species in one go, a shift toward lower fiber processed diets, and the heavy pharmacological burden from everyday chronic disease medications. It's basically a perfect storm for microbiome collapse. Moving on to section 2, let's see how all this builds into something completely unexpected, your gut's second brain. You might not realize it, but your gut actually contains about 500 million neurons. That is literally more than your spinal cord. This forms what we call the enteric nervous system, and it perfectly illustrates the gut-brain axis, which is this incredible two-way communication superhighway between your gut and your brain. They are constantly talking to each other via the vagus nerve, hormonal signals, and bacterial metabolites that actually cross the blood-brain barrier. So your microbiome doesn't just digest your lunch, it exerts a massive influence over your mood, your stress responses, and your overall cognition. To put that into perspective, just look at the numbers. Roughly 90% of your body's serotonin, that's the vital chemical directly responsible for regulating mood, well-being, and keeping depression at bay, is produced right in the gut. Your gut bacteria also pump out significant quantities of GABA, which is your primary neurotransmitter for regulating anxiety and stress. So, when the microbiome degrades after 60, this internal chemical factory basically shuts down. In fact, disruptions in this exact gut composition are now being found in patients with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease years before the actual neurological symptoms even show up clinically. It's wild. Which brings us to a major structural issue in the aging digestive tract. Section 3, leaky gut and systemic inflammation. The barrier separating the contents of your intestines from your bloodstream is astonishingly fragile. It is exactly 1 cell thick. When you're healthy, these things called tight junction proteins seal the spaces between the cells, acting like a highly secure checkpoint. But leaky gut, or increased intestinal permeability, happens when that single cell thick barrier gets compromised. When those delicate seals break, bacteria and bacterial toxins just leak directly into your systemic circulation. So what's actually breaking those seals in adults over 60? Well, it's driven by emulsifiers and artificial sweeteners found in ultra-processed foods, chronic use of alcohol and NSAID pain relievers, psychological stress, and even poor sleep. But most importantly, it is driven by the loss of fiber-fermenting bacteria. Without those specific bacteria, the gut lining literally starves and weakens. The result? A bacterial toxin called lipopolysaccharide leaks right into the blood, triggering a sustained, full-body inflammatory response that we call metabolic endotoxemia. This right here is the hidden driver behind the generalized inflammaging that fuels so many diseases associated with getting older.
Let's look at the widespread fallout from that inflammation in Section 4, Immune and Metabolic Aging. The sheer scale of your immune defenses might actually surprise you. A massive 70% of your entire immune system is located right in your gut. Your microbiome essentially acts as a tutor for your immune system, educating it on what to attack and what to tolerate. It does this by fermenting dietary fiber into short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate, propionate, and acetate. When you lose those fiber-fermenting bugs as you age, you lose those vital fatty acids. Consequently, your immune system gets confused. It becomes less effective at fighting genuine threats and way more prone to that chronic, low-level inflammation we just talked about. And your metabolism is equally hijacked by these microscopic residents. Specific microbes literally dictate your metabolic outcomes. For instance, there's a beneficial bacteria called Akkermansia mucinifila that's been proven in clinical research to actually improve insulin sensitivity and reduce liver fat. On the flip side, depending on the makeup of your microbiome, certain bacteria can take nutrients from red meat and eggs and turn them into a compound called TMAO, which highly elevates your cardiovascular risk. So you see, it's not just about what you eat. It's entirely about what your microbiome does with what you eat. Okay, so we know the crisis is real, but here's the good news. The damage is absolutely not permanent. Let's move to our final section, Section 5, 7 Proven Restoration Strategies. This is your evidence-based playbook. To kick off our solutions, let's look at a landmark 2021 study published in the journal Cell by researchers at Stanford. They compared a high-fiber diet directly against a high-fermented food diet. Now, fiber's great. It feeds the beneficial bacteria you already have. But for older adults whose diversity is already seriously depleted, fermented foods actually won out. The study found that introducing fermented foods rapidly increased microbiome diversity and significantly reduced 19 different inflammatory proteins. Sometimes, you literally need to parachute in new beneficial microbes before you can simply feed the ones that are left. Building on that exact idea, here are strategies 1 and 2. First, aim for 30 or more different plant foods every single week. Different bacteria eat different types of fiber, whether that's inulin, pectin, or beta-glucan. So sheer volume isn't enough. You need true diversity in your plants to create diversity in your gut. Second, eat fermented foods daily. We're talking plain yogurt with live cultures, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha. These foods directly introduce living, beneficial organisms straight into your depleted ecosystem. Strategies 3 and 4 shift over to targeted supplementation. Number 3, use prebiotic fibers. Taking 5 to 10 grams a day of prebiotics like inulin specifically feeds beneficial bifidobacterium, which we know drastically reduces in the aging gut. Number 4, if you're going to take a probiotic, skip those generic multi-strain bottles at the drugstore and get strain-specific. The clinical evidence points to Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG for immune enhancement and Bifidobacterium longum for anxiety and sleep improvement. Basically, you want to treat probiotics like specific tools for specific jobs. Finally, strategies 5, 6, and 7 are all about lifestyle and exposures. Strategy 5, minimize the disruptors. Try to only use antibiotics when absolutely medically necessary, avoid unnecessary NSAID pain relievers and proton pump inhibitors, and definitely ditch artificial sweeteners like sucralose, which directly disrupt the gut. Strategy 6 is moderate, regular exercise. Believe it or not, moving your body actually improves gut motility and transit time, completely independent of your diet. And strategy 7, optimize your sleep and manage your stress. Chronic stress spikes your cortisol, and that directly harms your intestinal barrier and your immune function. So here's the absolute crucial takeaway. Your gut health is not just some peripheral digestive issue. It is a central biological system that determines your body's inflammation levels, your immunity, your metabolism, and yes, even your brain chemistry. The degradation of the microbiome after 60 is arguably one of the most underappreciated drivers of aging, but through fiber diversity, fermented foods, targeted supplements, and healthy lifestyle boundaries, it is entirely modifiable. Your microbiome isn't just living inside you, it's shaping the very trajectory of how you age. So the only question left to ask yourself is, how will you feed it today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.